Hi, this is Sean at Exotics by Nature. We just wanted to make this quick recording just to tell the history of our puzzle project. Try to get everyone informed as to where it started. It all goes back to 2003 when we were in the market for our very first Super Pastel male. We were looking for the best quality that we could find, like we always do. And we searched high and low, and unfortunately the only animal we could find was a really unattractive one, and it was priced at $8,000. That's how much Super Pastels were worth back then, 8 to 10, maybe even more. We contacted Greg Graziani because he had always shown to have the best quality Super Pastels and pastels that we had seen on the market. And he informed us that he was sold out, but he did happen to have available one animal from his personal project, his personal holdback animal of the year, and it was absolutely gorgeous. It was $12,500, which was, as I just said, the other one that we were looking at was $8,000, so it was a pretty good bit more expensive than the first one we had really shown or had really seen. But this was the nicest Super Pastel we had ever laid our eyes on. I mean, he was absolutely gorgeous. Well, our breeding plans were simple for this male. We wanted to breed him to as many normal females as we could. We had quite a collection of normal females here at Exotics by Nature, and with pastels selling for more than $2,000 per pair, it was easy to turn this $12,500 investment back around to really a profitable level. We bred him to our female normals, and we produced some absolutely incredible pastels from him starting in 2005 and 2006. So back in like 2005, 2006, I don't exactly remember which year it was, we were contacted by one of our clients who was interested in producing his own bumblebees. Now, bumblebees, the spider pastel combinations at the time, were selling for upwards of $15,000, possibly $20,000 per animal, and there really weren't very many out to be had. So this customer came to us and he said, I really want to produce my own bumblebees. We sold him a pair of pastels and a pair of spiders. And his intention was to breed the male pastel to the female spider, the male spider to the female pastel. And ultimately, doing this, he would assure himself the bumblebee that he'd always wanted. That was his decision. We tried to sway him in other directions instead of spending so much money concentrating on one project, but that was what he wanted to do. So it was then he raised the animals for a few years. I believe it was in 2008. He called us on the phone, and he told us, I hatched my first clutch ever of ball pythons, and we were so happy for him. He was such a, he's such a snake lover. There was really no reason for us not to be thrilled with the information that he had to share with us about his first clutch. But he said that some of the animals came out weird looking, and he was completely confused about what could be going on with them. He lived about an hour away from our shop, so I asked him if he wouldn't mind taking a ride and bringing the animals with him, everything that he had hatched, and we would see. Because at that time, everyone was looking at everything as being different. If you had a pastel that was slightly lighter in color or darker in color, people would think that it was different. If spiders the same way, a pattern was different here and there, it had more or less white. People were looking for the value in anything that they could find. So I gotta say that I wasn't very over-enthusiastic about him saying, oh, these animals are different, because I thought it different to him is different than different to me. So why would I really worry about or even think about these animals being so drastically different, since I was so used to all of our customers and other people online sending us pictures of everything that they thought was special and different, and for us telling them that it was just a variation of a normal or of whatever morph it was that they were working on. So he arrived at our shop. I opened up his container, and inside he had some deli cups, and immediately I was shocked. My jaw hit the floor, and I was stunned at what I originally saw. And all I could think of was the name Puzzle. Now, the name Jigsaw had already been taken for the Mojave Pinstripe, so I couldn't call it a jigsaw ball. I'd have to call it a puzzle ball if I was to name it. I immediately called my good friend Tim Bailey to come down from his house, which is about 7-8 miles north of where my shop was at the time, to take a look at the animals and give us his opinion. And as soon as he got there, he said the same thing too. These things are stunningly different. Well, I talked to the original producer, the original customer, and I told him of the value that I thought was in the animals. Of course, he had absolutely no faith in my appraisal, saying that they were $10,000 to $15,000 animals. These pastel and super pastel puzzles, as we would call them. But he was not interested in selling any of them at all. He basically wanted to keep them because they were so weird and so different. He asked me what he should do, if he should keep them or if he should sell them. And I told him, if you're going to sell them to us, please. I mean, this project originated from us. We would do everything that we can to track it back into our collection and see if we could find the origination. The original father we knew was a super pastel that we had bought from Greg Graziani. The original female mom was going to be much harder to find. So he agreed to keep the animals, and if he wouldn't keep them, that he would sell them back to us at, I'm sure, a whopping profit, which I'm sure he was very happy to hear that they were worth so much money, because he had paid us so much money back then for a pair of pastels and a pair of spiders, which now were worth, 10% of what they were worth at the time. So in 2009, we bred all the animals that we could find that we thought were siblings from the super pastel male. The normal female, we ended up finding out that she was just a really old girl, and between the time that we had produced the animals that our client bought back in 2004 or 2005, that she had perished. We couldn't find her anywhere in the collection. We looked, we had her record card, we had the pattern of her jotted down on the back of the record card so we can tell what she was, and we searched through everything and we couldn't find her. Now, after breeding all the siblings from the super pastel male, we came to the conclusion that it wasn't from him. The gene didn't originate with the animal that we had purchased from Greg Graziani. So we waited to hear back from our client that year to see if he produced them again. Again, this is in 2009, and he did it again. He called and he said, man, they hatched again. But again, there were more more pastel puzzles and more super pastel puzzles. There was still no sign of a normal puzzle. And at that time, we knew for sure that it was going to be a proven to be a recessive trait, but we didn't know if it had some sort of a link effect to pastels. Now, we hadn't really seen any gene linking at that time. We didn't expect that to be the case, but having no proof, given the fact that in each clutch, the 2008, the initial clutch, and the 2009 secondary clutch, that there were only one normal in each one of those clutches. Both of them were male. Now, at this stage in the game, we didn't know what a normal puzzle would look like. I mean, in my mind's eye, I had an idea based on the pastel and the super pastel puzzle what the actual simple puzzle would look like, but I still didn't know for sure whether or not we were overlooking it. It was some very minor difference in the two normals we had to look at, the normal male from 2008 and normal male from 2009. Neither of them really looked all that different. So this brings us to 2010. Early part of 2010, we got a phone call from our client with some very sad news. He was actually being forced to get rid of his collection due to some local laws that had been passed in his county, brought on by an upset neighbor who didn't like snakes. Our client was a very responsible keeper and did everything that he could to keep the animals, but he was informed that if he didn't have them out of his possession within a matter of weeks, that they would be confiscated, he would be fined, and the animals would be killed. He called us heartbroken that he had to get rid of his hobby that he loved so much, but that he knew that it had its best hands with us. If he was to sell us the collection, including all the puzzles, as well as his other animals that were not from the puzzle project, that they would be cared for well, and that if anyone had the ability to do that here locally, it would be us. So we went over and picked them up, and we ended up with a small group. It was 2.1 pastel puzzles and one female super pastel puzzle, and a very small group of hets and possible hets. Just to jump back really quickly to the year of 2008, his pastel male bred his pastel female, and that's what produced the pastel puzzles and the super pastel puzzles. But he also bred his pastel male to his spider female. The reason he didn't breed the spider male to the pastel female was that his spider male, for some reason, wouldn't breed for him. So we went ahead and advised him to breed the pastel male to both of his females, his pastel and his spider, and he could possibly hit his bumblebee. And in the clutch in 2008, from the pastel male to the spider female, there was a bumblebee female and a spider female. He, of course, kept those as well. And then in 2010, when we took over the collection, we ended up with those two females as well. So at that point, again, we had 2.1 pastel puzzles, one female super pastel puzzle. We had a female, the original female pastel 100% het puzzle that we had sold him all those years ago. And we also had a female 50% possible het that was a bumblebee, and another 50% possible het puzzle that was a spider. So this really left us with a small number of animals to work with. In 2011, we bred the collection for the very first time in our care and produced a couple new, really, really astonishing new morphs, new creations. And the first one was we proved out one of the possible hets, the bumblebee, actually, possible het puzzle, proved out and gave us the very first buzz, which is what we named the bumblebee puzzle. We also hit it big that year by producing the world's first regular puzzle and finally proving the gene to the world to be completely recessive, but also not linked to pastel as a lot of people have speculated. So then we went on to start to market this project. We've been marketing it for years, trying to get it out there, but in the last few years, there's been such a huge surge of new morphs out there. It's been really hard to educate people and to show people what it's like. And I don't know why it's taken us so long to make a video such as this to illustrate to you the differences in what we've produced as well as what little has been produced. From 2010 to now is when we've had the project and we've been able to market it in our own possession. 2012, we hatched the same basic stuff that we had hatched for the 2 prior years. We produced one more puzzle, male. We produced a few pastel puzzles and maybe one super pastel puzzle. So we didn't get to produce any new morphs. I hadn't had a chance to really breed this into a lot of other things. We've made double het albino puzzles, double het caramel albino puzzles, double het hypo puzzles. And that brings us to this year, 2013, which allows us to spread our plans a little bit wider since now we have multiple animals to work with and we have a male that we can breed into other things. So we decided to bring it into the Enchi and the lesser platinum as well as the clown gene that we've been working with for about the last 10 years. Many of you know it as the Blade and the Super Blade clown. And now we have some Blade double het clown puzzles that we're really looking forward to. And this year in 2013, a breeder that is a great friend of ours, Marshall Van Thor from NOCO Reptiles in Colorado, he is actually one of the very initial investors in the project. He bought his animals back in 2009 or 2010. I'm not quite sure if I remember exactly when that was, but this year he bred his pastel puzzle male to a possible het, a bumblebee possible het puzzle that he had produced, a female, and he actually hatched the world's first killer buzz, and that would be a killer bee puzzle. So to date, as far as we know, the only visual animals in the world that we've seen have been the puzzle, the pastel puzzle, the super pastel puzzle, the buzz, which is the bumblebee puzzle, and the killer buzz, which is the killer bee puzzle. And several other breeders are working on this, but it's still a very low-key, low-distribution project. We have several animals available this year in 2013, but really we just wanted to answer the question, what is a puzzle? How is it inherited? How many are there? And what other morphs have been made? And back again, we haven't seen any morphs made outside of the pastel and spider groups. So the world is available to this. There's a lot of possibilities out there, and we hope that this has been an informative little video. We didn't mean for it to be too long, too much to listen to, but we wanted it to be basically the history of the project since we've taken it from its creation to where it is today, which is in the hands of a few very good, very well-known, and very reputable breeders here in the United States, as well as in Canada, in UK, in Japan. But there are very few animals out there. There are probably 7 people in the United States at this time, and again, we're making this video in October of 2013. There are maybe 6 or 7 individuals in the United States with visual animals, with homozygous animals. There are 3 people in Canada with the project at all, 2 of which have homozygous animals, 1 of which has a nice group of hets. And then in the UK, we only know of 1 breeder that's working with a visual animal or 2, as well as in Japan, several visual animals. And that's it. Thanks a lot for tuning into this. And again, this was the Puzzle Project. Its history from its inception in 2008 until now. Thanks a lot.